Hey, everybody. Welcome to Military Monday. Today's April the 14th, 2025. I'm Bob Wheeler with ClearedJobs.Net, and we're going to be talking some tips for transitioning military job seekers today. And today we're going to be doing that with a good buddy of mine named Shannon Robb from Defense Acquisition Support Services. So if you're joining us on LinkedIn right now, welcome. If you want to throw some comments into the thing to let us know who you are, where you're at, what branch you're in, when you're getting out, any of that kind of stuff is always great. As we go through, if you have any questions that you want to throw out there, let us know and we'll see if we can get to them. Sometimes we can answer them live and other times we have to get to them afterwards, but we love to hear that stuff. So again, now that we're all kind of live, we've been going for about a minute. My name is Bob Wheeler with ClearedJobs.Net, and we've got Shannon Robb. Like I said, he's at Defense Acquisition and Support Services. Good buddy of mine. We've known each other for quite a while. Shannon, you want to say hello and let us know how you got where you're at, where you started?
Sounds good. Yeah, I'm Shannon Robb. I know Bob from you and I worked together over at Clear Jobs. Before that, I was in the Navy, did 20 years, was a career counselor for the Navy. Then I got started working over here at DAS. It's been a great change. It's just being able to put everything we did over there at Clear Jobs to work here has been completely, you know, eye-opening to see things on this side. And I try to help, transitioning veterans a lot. A lot of people were in our type of situations trying to find where they wanted to go after we got out. So quite a great journey, I should say.
Yeah, so we're going to be referring to Defense Acquisition Support Services as DAS. That's pretty much the way you guys.
Yeah, it's a mouthful, so we kind of just make it easier. Just call us DAS. It's just easier. Rolls off the
Yeah.
tongue.
And what? So you're a recruiter over there now. That's what you're doing.
Yeah, I'm actually the talent acquisitions manager. I run all the recruiting for us, and it's fun.
All right. Well, like Shannon had said, we've known each other for a while. We were, both were in the Navy. He worked with Clear Jobs for a little bit back in the day, and continued our friendship. But he's, like lots of other things, he's on a different side of that now. He's on the side of trying to get folks. He's been that transitioning sailor. He's been that person who's now helping people out. So what we're doing today is we're going to have a quick conversation. In the last few weeks, I've been to some job fairs. ClearedJobs.Net has hosted some job fairs up in Tyson's Corner, where I was able to interview a number of transitioning military folks who were there, talk to some recruiters who were there. Last week, I did a webinar with recruiters on how to find and connect with transitioning military folks, kind of got some of their feedback on the things that frustrates them or things that they wish folks did better at. So in this position, I'm kind of living in between two worlds, and Shannon's lived in between both these worlds as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring up some topics that were brought up to us, and we're going to just have a discussion about those things. Shannon, when we were at the job fair, we did some hard surveys, like some hard fill it out surveys, and also talked to people face to face. A few people, more than one, actually a good number, had said, their big issue is that they're not sure what they want to do. That's kind of common, isn't it? When you first get out of the military, to not know where you want to go. That's tough.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I make the joke to my kids even now. Is like, I spent 20 years in the service and I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up. I mean, you really don't. And then when we spend 20 years in service, or even at 4 years, you get very institutionalized and you're used to that type of normal, get up, go to work. It's always, what's going to happen, and it's just easier for us. So yeah, it's a big change. And honestly, you don't know what you want to do. And it's kind of like what we spoke the other day. But then again, when you join the military, you had the ASVAB that kind of told you what you would be good at if we threw a bunch of stuff at you and how you'd be able to accomplish those things. So I think for us, I think it's important to look at what we have in front of us and what we can do, and just kind of see what's out there and network. I mean, I think that's the best way to do that. Don't be afraid. I mean,
Yeah, that networking piece. Some people think it's a dirty word, but the more people know you as a real person, more than just a resume.
right.
I've been here at ClearedJobs.Net for over 10 years. If you would have asked me when I got out of the Navy what I was going to do, this was not what I thought. And it was somebody else who said, "Hey, have you ever thought about doing this?" And I thought, no. But what we've learned is that if you're having a good network, if somebody says, "Have you ever thought about doing this?" you should probably at least think about it. I mean, if they know the job, and they know you, that's a good starting point sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, especially because somebody from the outside looking at you doesn't have the blinders on. Like, a lot of people in your own circle, like maybe your wife or spouse in that instance, they have their own like venue of you. When other people give you an idea, you should really think about it, because they obviously see something that you don't.
Yeah. When you're over there at DAS, are you placing a lot of folks that are maybe going into new fields at all, or what's it
I
like in
mean,
that?
I do get quite a few, like I try to, when I look at somebody, especially if they apply, I'll look at their resume and kind of say, hey, maybe this one position you applied for isn't the right cat's meow for you, for say, but it's like, I might see something in your resume that I think you'll be better suited for another position. So I might pitch that to you. A lot of recruiters don't do that. They're like, yeah, whatever, you didn't do the right one, you're not fit, move on. One of the things here at DAS, we kind of look at it like a 60% kind of I guess, fit for that type of position. And if I can fit you in that 60%, and then you have a good personality when I talk to you, and you just kind of come off that way, it makes it easier for me to say, okay, this is my guy. I'm going to go ahead and pitch him to the hiring manager and go that route. Um, so
Yeah, and you know what, you mentioned hiring manager. One of the things that we also, in talking to folks at the job fair, some people had interesting stories about dealing with recruiters and hiring managers, and it was like the kind of a thing that they really, I guess, they weren't prepared for necessarily, or they had some, I don't want to say trouble, but they just realized that sometimes the way things go one time doesn't mean it's going to go the same way the other time. So they're
right.
realizing that relationship. And how many folks? I mean, are you dealing with a lot over there? But you also might see it, just in the industry in general. That relationship between the recruiter and the hiring manager can be so critical in the way things go, can it?
Oh, I think it is. I mean, especially when you're dealing with like a smaller company versus like a larger corporation that has maybe several hiring managers and several recruiters. I mean, one hiring manager could have like 10 to 15 recruiters. Like with my situation, I know my hiring manager very well. So me and him, I know what he's going to say 90% of the time before he even says it, because
Yeah.
I already know what, so you try not to pitch him bad things and things like that. But yeah, I think that relationship's crucial, because if you don't know what they're thinking, you're not going to be able to get your candidate through.
Yeah, one of the girls ladies, however you want to say it, she was an Army E6, and she was getting on a med board, so she wasn't thinking about getting out until all of a sudden she had to get out,
Right.
And that was already scaring her enough. But her story was the recruiter had said, "Give me a really tight, distilled resume," which is actually probably some of the best advice we always give folks. Make it very, very tailored. She brought it to the hiring manager, and then he came back and said, "No, I want a big giant, like a USA Jobs resume. I want a big giant resume," which is weird, because that's very not typically the case.
Right.
But in this case, it was the case for that guy, and that just shows you that relationship. It does kind of all go back to what the hiring manager wants. And as a recruiter, it's your job to understand that cat so you can explain it and get what they need,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah. So a lot of times, like even here at DAS, even me and my other recruiter, what we'll do is if we see a resume and it's kind of like that, we'll actually tailor it, because again, we know what the hiring manager is going to look for. So we might have a conversation with that candidate and say, hey, you need to kind of emphasize A, B, and C, remove this over here, kind of a thing. And sometimes even our hiring manager, he will come back, and when we pitch them different resumes, and say, hey, this looks great, but let's go ahead and emphasize this, and let's move this up, to kind of get it in front of the customer, to be able to say, hey, this is your guy, kind of a thing.
Yeah. And that's the key to having a good relationship with that recruiter, because a good recruiter is going to be able to maybe ask you to tweak some. They're not going to ask you to lie. They're not going to ask
Right.
you
No,
to,
not at all.
but they could definitely, and sometimes it even hurts I don't want to say hurts your soul, but I've talked to some folks and they have things in their resume that are like, it's the coolest thing I did in the Navy was this. And you're like, yeah, but it has nothing to do with the job.
Right. Yeah, no, and it's hard for us, but I mean, for you and I, we just put on that chief hat and just do what we do. So, we're used to writing evals and things like that all the time. And a lot of the people you're dealing with are the senior leadership anyway, so they get it.
Yeah.
Even the junior, kids that I talk to, it's the same thing. They understand. I mean,
Yeah.
I usually tell them when I talk to them, like, all right, look, I'm putting my chief hat on now, so get ready.
Yeah. So we did have one comment. Just wants to say hello to Jonathan. When he's somebody who's joining us. He's a program manager. Just wants to say hello to everybody. If you're out there watching us on LinkedIn and you want to let us know who you are, where you're at, feel free to throw that information in there. We're glad to have you folks that are in here. Another topic to talk about, Shannon, and this was when you and I were kind of, it branched off, but it was also part of the conversation that I had with job seekers at that job fair. Was it 12 days ago, 2 weeks ago, not quite. Small company versus big company. And you've mentioned it a little bit with the, big companies have got recruiters that have to answer to different hiring managers and lots of different recs. But there's also some interesting things about just, a lot of times veterans don't Do you think they sometimes skip over the small companies a little bit too quick just because they don't have the name recognition or anything?
I think so. You got to realize, well, for us, you always see the the bigger companies,
Yeah.
things like that, because their names are everywhere on installations and things like that. So, you forget that a lot of them work with smaller companies, and sometimes, it's all about what you're used to too. I think vets really should look at the smaller companies before the bigger companies, because with the big companies you're just a number. Honestly, I hate to say that, but it's the truth, because they have so many of them. I look at myself, right? I came on with ClearedJobs, and it was great. It was a family environment. It was, very tight niche, just like it was being part of a department or division. Whereas the same thing over here with DAS, it's the same. It's a small knit company, but we all know each other. It's very family oriented. I think you have a better opportunity. One, somebody's going to help you tailor your resume. We're going to try to find you the right place to go. Whereas a big company, they get thousands of resumes a day. I mean, it's not their fault. It's just the nature of the beast. It's
Yeah.
just the way things go.
And when you're looking for companies, I always tell folks, when you're looking at, because job fair, there's companies that they've never seen before.
Right.
And one of the things that I like to tell them is look at the stability. This is where you ask questions. This is where you talk to recruiters, you do some research, and you'll find out. I mean, you and I both, this was one of our jobs when we first came out. I don't know about you, dude, but I had no idea how many government contractors there were in the world until I started working here.
We still don't know them all to this day. There's so many. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. And so there's so much out there, it's certainly not to say pick one versus the other. I think that you can be happy in both places. But I think different people's, just the way that they feel comfortable, but the mistake would be to skip over things just because you've never heard of them. That's, I think, the big takeaway.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that's the biggest thing. I think you should talk to everybody, and really, big, small, indifferent. It's all the same. You should at least talk to them all. Me personally, I've had better experiences with the smaller companies, and it's the family niche is what I enjoy. It's like, just like I said, it's like being still in the military, but not in the military.
Yeah. Yeah. So speaking of being a great recruiter, which I know that you are, this was, questions. This was interesting to me because when I talked to the recruiters at the job fair, probably more than half of them said, I wish that job seekers asked more questions of me. And then I kind of thought to myself, well, I think that's true. And we certainly encourage job seekers to ask questions, but I always wonder, as a recruiter, I think a good recruiter proactively looks for those things, because
right.
If you just sit and wait for the job seeker to ask questions, you might miss something. So if you're a job seeker out there, ask. If you don't know something, if you don't understand benefits, pay, how things work, just the process, ask those questions. But I think that you're also going to find that some of the really good recruiters, Shannon, you talk about how much you like to pull the strings on people to ask those questions to encourage them to find out that stuff, right?
Right, exactly. A lot of things that I do, being on this side before, I already know a lot of the things that we're asking, because, healthcare and all this stuff, this is all new for us. I mean, a lot of these benefits are different from what we're used to. So yeah, you are going to be kind of gun shy, but you should ask. That's the job of recruiters, to inform you on everything you can. If they don't know, they should be at least to give you the right information, or tell you, hey, that might be something that goes on onboarding or something else. But yeah, those are good questions to have up. And any good recruiter is going to make sure that they get you that information.
Yeah, I think there's sometimes folks when they're coming, especially some of the more senior folks, may have a tendency to not want to ask a question because they don't want to appear, hey, I was an 05 in the military. Like I was used to having answers, not having questions,
Right. And I think, you say that, and I agree. However, I would give this piece of advice. It was given to me actually by a really good mentor of mine, and he retired senior chief. And he was always 2 pay grades ahead of me. And he came to the shop one day, and he was like, Shannon, look, respect me as an E6, but however, I don't know anything, so treat me like a fireman. So with, being an E3. So it was the same way. You kind of have to have that mentality when you're coming into the civilian sector. It's completely different than what we were used to in the military.
Yeah. So still going on here. We've got Shan Robb with the Defense Acquisition Support Services with us. Throw his name and stuff back up there with his company. Got some more. Most of our comments are mostly just people saying hello. So we got our first Master Chief in the room. So hey, Scott, how you doing? He's doing a skill bridge for cyber threat type stuff, transitioning out as an Intel guy. But welcome to our
Nice.
little Military Monday, Scott. And anybody else who wants to say hello and drop us who you are, where you're at, what you're doing, or if you have any questions for myself or for Shannon, you can let us know. We got about another 10 more minutes to go with Shannon here. Shannon, we've been talking about things. We've been talking about the questions, and one of the questions that folks talk about or have the biggest question about is salary expectations. This is something that I think it kind of bedevils folks when they're getting out, because my guess is that it's a big issue because you're afraid to get it wrong as a job seeker.
I think that's the truth. I mean, honestly, we always are like, hey, I don't want to undervalue myself,
Yeah.
kind of a thing. It's a question that has to be had. I think with all of the, how do I say, with all the things out there, you should have a salary idea. You can go look at like Glassdoor, salary.com, things like that, and get kind of an idea of what kind of a salary are. Me personally, what I tell my candidates when I talk to them, and I bring up salary. So one of the things I'll always ask them is like, hey, what is the number that you need to be happy? And one of the things I say that's because we try to beat whatever they're looking for. But sometimes you can't with fair fixed price and things like that, and these way these contracts roll, especially now with the way the government is. It's very interesting. Before, when we had several different opportunities, it all depends upon what kind of contract it was for the rec. But yeah, I think you need to have that conversation. You should have a number in mind of what you're looking for, and try to strive for that. Now, of course, if you're looking for $200,000 and you're applying for a job and say, I hate to pick on Michigan, but in Detroit, you're probably not going to get a
Yeah.
$200,000. You just don't need that type of money out there. So yeah, you just have to be realistic, know the job, know the area, and have a good number that you're happy with, that you think you're worth.
What, how many locations has DAS got people at? You guys, I know Maryland's one of your main spots, but is it just
Yeah.
Maryland? Is it all over the place?
Well, no, APG's, Aberdeen Proving Ground's our biggest hub. That's where our headquarters is. We do have some stuff out in El Paso. We have things in Huntsville. We do have a lot. Our other big one's probably going to be up at Detroit Arsenal. And I do get some stuff out in Idaho and Ohio. So
Do you guys see a lot of so is your salaries and stuff like that? Is it kind of, I mean, I always think back to in the military, you get orders, you get a different BAH.
right.
So the Navy was always going to take care of, the military was going to take care to make sure that we were staying the same. Are your contracts set up to where they've got a different like cost of living factored into them when?
I would say kind of usually because especially now you're talking about like how we're pitching contracts and things. So it really depends on what's available for that area. Now
Mhm.
it's mostly all off of labor categories. Is really what it comes down to. Now, of
Yeah.
course, that's all like our pay grades were in the military. For you need so many things. You needed your education. You need certs. You need time. Things like that. That all plays into your salary as far as we go, because it's still all pinned out by the government. Even though they win these contracts, they still say, hey, you could pay people X, Y, and Z that have these qualifications. So it makes it kind of, I don't really want to say COLA or cost of living is really involved, but we do know when they pitch these, they do take these, to live in X, Y, and Z area, it's not going to cost that much. So we can
Yeah.
come down a little bit on that price when you pitch it. So I'd say it's in the contracts when they make the bids, but as far as
Not like
just
as a
for
line item. It's
yeah,
not like,
not like a line item. I think it's something that's a good contractor company would kind of look at.
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I think that most government contracts, when you look around, I mean, they're designed, hopefully, if you do your bid right, hopefully to be able to pay you, what you're supposed to be making
In that
for
area.
that location at the time, But you had mentioned a little bit about that firm fixed stuff. I mean, they're a lot of times as a government contractor, though, you've got your hands are either tired or you are tied, or you've got a pretty narrow thing to work within. Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that's really the truth. So when there's different types of contracts, and especially the way the environment is right now, we're kind of moving. I've seen all they want is fixed priced, because
Mhm.
that's kind of what they're looking for now. Whereas before, they could have been like cost plus and things like that, where we had availabilities to kind of wiggle a little bit with what we had pitched. But now what they're talking about, yeah, I don't think that's going to be in the foreseeable future. The government wants to know what they're going to pay, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, we that's where we kind of get into the state of the job market. That was one of our ending topics here for today. It's interesting. I think, it, that's always the tough part when you're getting out of the service. It's kind of like, unless you're one of those people getting med boarded out, if you're going to do a retirement, you kind of have to decide to quit your job like a year ahead of time. and then just hope the market's good when you're going to get out,
Right.
and you never know. It's some interesting times, but I think there's still some opportunities out there. But I know one of the things that I talked to some of the recruiters was just mentioning that depending on what you do, certainly if you've got very specific skills, or it's one thing, but in a lot of cases there's a big supply right now because there's a lot of people looking for jobs that are open for stuff. So the competition, I guess, is a little bit tougher. Would you say maybe, or how'd that?
I would say that the competition's a little bit more strict. But I will also say that with the change in like the return to work order, a lot of these people were on contracts like living in Maryland and then, were remote for a contract that was out in DC. So now you got a lot of these people that are like, hey, I don't want to make that hour and a half commute anymore or have to. So I'm going to start looking in my local area. So, I think maybe in your local area, it's going to really kind of turn up that, you know, hey, the competition is going to be there kind of a thing. So yeah, definitely, I think it's going to change. I think there's a lot more out there. A lot of companies are still waiting to see what's happening. A lot, like even for us, some of our people that got moved over to the government side, because that happens a lot in the contracting business. That's what they do. They go CETA to try to get into the government side. A lot of them are now like, hey, my 90 days is up or not coming up, and I might get hit by Doge. Can I come back to the contractor side? So we've had to slow down some of our recs so we can accommodate those people, because we don't want them to be unemployed. They're part of the DAS family. We want to keep it that way. I'm sure other people are doing that too. So we've seen our recs kind of slow down a little bit because just the way the market is. We just don't know what's going on.
Yeah, we actually had a question that came in, which was while we were talking, which is pretty much what we were just talking about. Want to know if we
Okay.
had noticed a reduction in cleared jobs due to Doge, or the hiring freeze. And this guy was down in Hampton Roads area, seeing that's kind of what he's feeling in the atmosphere down there, I guess. But yeah, I mean, it's just like Shannon was talking about, was really, it's an interesting time, but it's certainly not a time to hide your head in the sand. I mean,
No.
job fair we just had, I was talking to, we had one government or like strictly government organization that was there hiring for GS jobs, but they had to put on there that they had a hiring freeze, but they were still talking to people. Like, these are the things that we know that when the freeze is over, we're going to be looking for. So, I think, my take, Shannon, would be, if you're getting out, this is where you build your network too. Because when things open up, the first thing that people like you are going to do. I mean, I don't know, you've got openings right now too, but I mean, if all of a sudden DAS got even more open spots, the first thing you'd be going to do is look at the people you've already connected with, the people you have relationships with, right?
Yeah, so like I keep a Rolodex, and I do that, and I tell everybody, I might not have some for you today, but I'll definitely keep up with you. And it goes back to when we were career recruiting for the Navy. It's always about follow up and building that network, and always having those people in a pipeline to be able to say, hey, look, I got something. Now, sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't, but it's always good to network and have people in your back pocket, especially transitioning vets, because you can't get anything better than a transitioning vet. I mean, come on, look at you and I.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. So, hey, we've talked a little bit about job fairs. Just FYI, if you're on here, if you go to ClearedJobs.Net, we've got some job fairs still coming up. We've got a polygraph only job fair coming up in the first week of May 4th, up near Maryland, in Hanover, Maryland, close to Fort Meade. We've got an all clearances job fair that's a virtual event on May 20th. But if you go to ClearedJobs.Net, click on the job fairs tab, you can see the whole schedule. So whether you're a polygraph cleared person and you're looking for those things, or whether you're all cleared, you can definitely take a look at some of those things. Shannon, if they want to find you, we can find you on LinkedIn, but is there any other way that they can hit you up?
I think LinkedIn's probably, yeah, I think LinkedIn's probably the best way to catch me. I'm always in there. I'm always doing things. I'm always posting. So yeah, I think it's probably the best way to network with me.
You got specific skill sets that you're always on the lookout for?
Anything in acquisitions, budget, cost. Let me think. What else? I'm always looking for EAs.
EA, executive assistant.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's usually a good one that I usually use that one when I'm trying to find, like when I got junior people coming out of the service, especially when they're trying to get their foot in the door. That's a good one to kind of get your feet wet and kind of, because you get exposed to a lot of different things and you're able to move into other roles from that. But yeah, anything acquisitions, logistics. I mean,
you guys are typically on the lower end clearances, right? Like the secrets and stuff.
Yeah, I get into the TSs, but nothing higher than a TS, and not mostly all of them are just secrets.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, this is great. I hope that the folks that have been able to join us today picked up a few things about the state of the industry. Just knowing that, I think if we had to kind of kind of put a lid on this, man. It's really get to know that recruiter, reach out to folks, ask questions. If you don't know what you want to do with your life, it's okay, but ask questions. And just the more you get to know people, and that, I guess that network can also be, it's kind of it's a Doge proof thing. It can help you out even when the market gets kind of tough.
Yeah, I agree. I think things are going to come to a close. I think probably things will slow down by the summer and things will be back to normal. The way we've kind of seen things, it's kind of the way I feel. It's just the way this stuff goes in waves.
Yep. So we just threw the link to Shannon's LinkedIn down in the comments too. So anybody that's on there, if you want to hit that up. But Shannon, dude, I really appreciate catching up with you, and I hope that you and the family continue to do great things out there. I hope the barbecue and the wood, the meat smoking that you're always doing is.
Hey, baby, you know it. Got to smoke the meat. Got to continue to build them picnic tables.
There you go. Yeah. So it's great to catch up with folks. And for all you veterans out there who are looking for things, good luck with everything. Let us know. Find me, Bob Wheeler, at ClearedJobs.Net, or Shannon Robb at Defense Acquisition Support Services. Always here to help you out. But that's all we got for you this Monday. So everybody, have a good one.
Have a good one.